Finally, Jules Polonetsky, who's, as I've told you before, is the Chief Privacy Officer and Special Counsel at DoubleClick. As you've also heard, Jules was the Commissioner of Consumer Affairs in New York City. I'm sure you were also aware he was in the New York State Assembly. He also worked for Charles Schumer and for Steve Solars, and I think early on was at Strzok and Strzok. At DoubleClick, he works on privacy issues, on other kinds of technology issues, privacy policies for DoubleClick, for DoubleClick's clients. And if you've heard Jules speak about some of these technology issues, you realize that he is, and I guess DoubleClick is really at the forefront of some of these issues and talks about things that just I personally just never even heard of. So it is fascinating to hear Jules speak about some of these issues and some of the things that consumers are being faced with. Also, DoubleClick entered into a big settlement of its class actions recently that I think you've heard a little bit about, and I'm sure people will be interested to hear about that as well. So anyway, welcome, thank you.
Well, I'm going to be opportunistic, perhaps, and just touch on different topics that were mentioned earlier. I don't know if as the only currently employed by business person on the panel, I'm actually supposed to do a rebuttal, but I am scared to do so once it's been pointed out that there are a whole crew of the AG staff, including, Ellie did mention David Stampley, who's top-notch lawyer in the Internet Bureau, but let me also mention some of the folks who I really learned most of what I ever learned about consumer affairs from some of the team at the Department of Consumer Affairs. And I know Gretchen probably learned an awful lot from them as well, Susan Kasapian and Bob Martin, and Fred Cantor, who used to be at the department and who was snatched away by the DDD Carroll unit. I actually snatched somebody from the department to bring them over to Consumer Affairs, Lisa Berkauer, formerly the chief ALJ over there. And so tremendous reservoir of talent. And we, I commend you for putting together the psychic case, because we were trying to figure out, I would watch those as well. And I kept thinking, well, you know, this is such a scam. I mean, clearly this is an outrageous scam. And our tack, which didn't play out, so you were better than us, was, you know, I looked at it and we had heard that, you know, if somebody really thinks they're a psychic and they're trying to be psychic, let's not, you know, let's respect their view. But we had heard that most of these folks don't actually even think that they're psychic, and they're scripts, and you can actually go in, get a job, and be trained how to keep people on the phone as long as possible, and there's sort of a whole set script of, you know, answers, because there are people just answering the phone and being your personal psychic when you called. And we thought we had some sort of an angle there, and our goal was to actually get somebody hired so that we could document this and get it on tape. And it turned out to be very difficult to get somebody employed by one of these agencies, and so you were far more resourceful in accomplishing that than us, Bob. Let me talk about a couple of practical tips, perhaps just as a consumer, and perhaps hand on some practical items that I hope you'll all do. I recently was the victim of identity theft, and so as I went through the process of dealing with the issues, I kind of also candidly looked at it as, you know, somebody focused on the regulatory and what could be different. Somebody, like many, got something in the mail confirming a purchase, immediately called and realized that somebody had taken out a store credit card in my name, pulled my credit records from all the agencies, and saw all the inquiries that were in process or credit that had been granted. Saw how difficult it was to track down who actually was behind some of those inquiries. It was quite difficult. Reached out to the 15 or so stores. The latest thing now is cell phones as well, right? You go and you get your credit checks, you instantly get your cell phone, and so they also have taken out a number of cell phones in my name. But, you know, the retail folks are used to getting calls and saying, hey, this charge hasn't been made, and sending you the affidavit, and so their processes set up, whether they're slow and it takes a long time. It takes a very long time, I'll talk about that in a second. But I called two of the cell companies, and they have no process set up whatsoever. And I said, well, I want to block this from happening again. And stores, you know, no problem, we put you on a credit watch. They said, no, you just, you know, what we can do is we can never grant you a cell phone if you ever want one, ever again in the world. Or, you know, we'll just cancel this charge, and if it happens again, you can call us again, you know, which didn't quite work. And so for the folks in government, let me just maybe point out some interesting direction to go. So then finally I tracked down the last of the companies that had issued credit in my name, and it was Walmart. And I called them, they said, okay, we'll send you an affidavit. You know, months go by and I'm checking my credit report to see if I'm planning on buying an apartment, so the timing is perfect. There are all these inquiries, and you know, as you're aware, it's not just credit that is issued in your name that you don't pay and ends up being negative, but if you have lots of inquiries of credit that isn't granted, that's considered negatively as well. The credit agencies are tweaking that a little bit because often people who are shopping for mortgages on the internet, not in a bad way, this is a good thing, check many prices, you know, enter their information, get instant quotes. In the past, you know, you called up 2 or 3 places, they gave you a quote, you really only had one inquiry by the place you actually went ahead and got your mortgage with. Well, on the internet, you can go ahead and get, you know, 18 quotes and pick the cheapest one, but you then have 18 inquiries with credit not granted, not for a bad reason, but because you took a cheaper rate. Well, all of a sudden, this was starting to reflect negatively. So they started tweaking that, and so inquiries will count against you if you've got lots of them, but if they're clustered in one short period of time, and so if this crook bunches all the attempts to get credit in one narrow period of time, it'll be considered like one credit inquiry, so it only will partially mess you up. But in any case, Walmart is very busy, and I guess there are lots of complaints, and it was during the holiday season, and so 2 or 3 months later, I still hadn't gotten the affidavit from them to send back to them to get this inquiry off my record. Now here's the funny thing. What I did right away, of course, and I hope people who haven't done this will do this now, is I called up and I got a credit fraud watch put on my account. Has anybody done this?
Yes.
Has anybody done this? Please do this, because all this means is that when you go to a store and you try to take out a store credit card, or if you want to go and get a phone, you know, instantly, they'll have to call you. Big deal. They give them a number, you call you say, yes, that's me, go ahead, and you confirm the credit. But what it also means is that anybody in the world who gets your information somehow, off a receipt or whatever it is, cannot go in and also open up a store credit account in your name and run off thousands of dollars of purchases. So, go ahead and do it. You can do it online. Again, I feel like I'm going to stick up for the internet. You can go online and actually file this thing at the major 3 credit agencies. I wish I had done it. I used to hunt when I was out as Consumer Affairs Commissioner doing speaking advice, say consumers really should do this. It makes sense, and I hadn't done it. So, please do it. Well, here's the funny thing. I'm waiting for my Walmart affidavit to show up, and I realize that the credit freeze that I put on doesn't last forever. As a matter of fact, that experiment lasts for 3 months. And so I put this check on. My block is going to expire, so if this bad guy still has my information, he can start opening up accounts again, but I still haven't gotten my affidavit from Walmart to get rid of it, which I think makes a good argument that 3 months is by no means a long enough period of time, something that the FTC could perhaps, since they regulate the credit agencies, act upon. So, things that bother me nowadays. Pop-ups both please me and bother me. Pop-ups please me because most websites are free and they're making money by selling ads, and they get more money when the ad is a big pop-up because you see it and you're more likely to respond to it. Some sites do it nicely. They send 1 or 2 or 3, but not too many because you'll get annoyed and you'll go away. But other sites send many. And you go away, except you don't know who actually has left you this pop-up. You visit the site, which seems interesting. You leave, and there are now pop-ups appearing, and you think it's, you know, the New York Times that's done it to you, but it's actually the cheesy site that you were at 3 sites ago, but you have no clue where it's actually came from. And then you close your browser, you're off the internet, you think, and one appears on your computer. Now you're really scared, why is it sitting on my desktop? And that's because if you use any of the later versions of Microsoft Outlook, you have something running called Active Desktop, which integrates your browser. So your browser is always theoretically open, and so you've got this pop-up now from the last site you were at, even though you think you've closed your browser. The last browser window is actually open. So what can you do about it? You can scream and yell and say, you know, I don't want pop-ups, they're terrible. Obviously, they're driving revenue and keeping a lot of the sites that you like available and free. So control them. There's tons of software out there. A lot of it's free. I use, I don't want to recommend any particular software in case it trashes your computer, but I use something called Panicware. And so if you're out on the internet a lot and these pop-ups bother you, download this free software called Panicware. It sits there at the bottom of your tray, and I leave it off. Please leave it off so that the reasonable sites can show you some pleasant number of them. But when you actually end up getting, you know, squamped, you just turn this, you click it, you turn it on, and it disables JavaScripting, and nobody can leave a script that will open up these new browser windows and annoy you. So some of the tools are out there, and one of the best ways to push back against the sites that are overreaching is to take advantage of some of those tools. Let me also call for some legislation. The FTC should pass legislation, should propose with businesses and government federal legislation on spam. I usually argue that businesses, we're trying to get it right. There are more privacy policies up there. There are better privacy policies up there. Fewer sites are collecting personal information. The study that Barbara cited, fewer are using cookies. So, right, sites are getting the message that consumers don't want as much information collected. Clearly, the spam problem isn't something that industry has yet successfully resolved. And what is happening is, as the Chairman Muris pointed out, you're starting already to see this plethora of state-by-state legislation. Now, when you call the state legislator, they called Cheryl, who works at the Consumer Affairs Committee for the assembly member or the federal chairs, and I said, New York State shouldn't have its own bill. And I spent time talking to some of the other state legislators, and they say, like I did when I was state legislator, oh no, we have jurisdiction where the state will protect it. If the federal government gets around to fixing the problem, that's good, but we're the ones who are close to consumers, we're local, we hear from our constituents, we want to put measures in place. Put yourself on the business side for a second. There are 50 different, there are already 10 or 15, there are 50 different state laws that say, if you send out email, you have to say ADV. If you send out email, it's got to be triple opt-in or double opt-in. You have to say these things in the body of your email. And so, you want to comply. Some of you represent companies that do catalog businesses or operate in 50 states, and you understand you've got to comply with the law in those states when you intend to do business there. So I'm the Wall Street Journal, and I have a list of 2 million email names. I may not have your address. I got your email. I don't know what state you live in. And I now want to send you the daily newsletter that you subscribe to, top Merrill Lynch internet stock tips of the day. I want to get this for free from the Wall Street Journal regularly. As it is free. It used to be free. I don't think I am free. But in any case, I now have to figure out how to send out this email in some way that's going to comply. It's got to have ADV for Minnesota. It's got to have a physical address for, and half of these are inconsistent with each other. And so I think that legitimate businesses who want to send email at users' request and who want to market and who want to save money, perhaps instead of sending you that catalog that costs them $1 to stick in your mailbox, want to frankly send the people who actually want the J.Crew catalog online and their greatest deals and so forth. They want to send it much cheaper to you via email, which obviously saves money for everybody, but that gets drowned out when there are those 8,000 foreign emails in there and the ones that you don't want to open. Do not open those, by the way. One of the technical challenges that exists is most companies that deliver email provide tools that will allow users, the clients, the customers, the advertisers who are sending out the email to know whether the email has been opened, which is okay. They don't tell you about that, but it's okay. But the spammer who's using a similar tool and who's doing what's known as sort of an alphabet attack, I'm sending an email to every possible combination of letters at AOL, Hotmail, Yahoo, and Earthlink. And there's a lot of people, there's a good chance that 10% of those are going to end up being real users. But it's expensive for me to do that each time. Well, if I embed one of these tools in the email, then I know which ones are open, and I now know which are live. And so what folks recommend is that you get an email from some strange company with some, be careful about the messages nowadays. They used to say, free offers and so forth. Consumers got smart, and so now they pretend to be emails from your friends, whether they're, a virus pretending to be an email from your friend, or a marketer who is encouraging you, and it says, hello, Jules, or haven't talked to you in a while, and so forth, and in the end, it's actually a marketing email. And so you frankly want to delete those right away, and if you are an AOL or a Hotmail or a Yahoo customer, forward it back to them so that they know that this is an email that ought to go on their junk mail list and their block list. AOL has a nice feature called Notify AOL, and you can ping it back to them. And what they do is they call up the sender of those emails and they say, they try to figure out who they are, they sue them, they block them, they try to prevent them from delivering the email, because most of the internet service providers are incredibly burdened. This is expensive. It's 10 or 20% of their volume, and it's always complaints that you send to them that they then have to deal with. So delete it and be careful about opening it. how many people are using the latest version of the Internet Explorer browser 6.0, one that has P3P built in? About 25% of all users already have this, and so some of you in this room probably do. Let me urge you to play with the privacy controls in there, because if nobody uses these, businesses that today are jumping through hoops to try to implement P3P, this technical way of presenting your privacy policy so that users in advance can say, I'll go to sites only if they don't take any personal information. I'll go to sites that can take my personal information, but I don't want them to give it to anybody else. Sites that are jumping through hoops, because today, if you're using this new browser and you go to a site that hasn't implemented this, you get a little warning. It's not a scary warning, but it's like a little red button. If you're a bank, you don't want somebody coming to your bank site and having this little red warning that says, dangerous privacy issue here. Enough people are not completing transactions at your site because they're scared about privacy, let alone a little warning. So businesses are spending a fortune of money now trying to figure out, how do I put this P3P here and there, and it's in the latest browser. But if nobody actually uses it, nobody adjusts the setting or deals with it or clicks on it so you can actually view somebody's privacy policy instantly without having to grab it, it's certainly not going to be used. So take a look at it, play with it. When some of these tools are starting to appear, you don't have to go get them. You got to go get this panicware thing that I talked about. This is sort of here, it's built in, it's for free. Microsoft is giving it to you for free. It's built right in there. Go ahead and use it, and I think you'll see businesses continuing. If people aren't using it, well, frankly, who's going to bother jumping through those hoops? There was a lot of pushback early on, if you remember, about ATM fees. We hated them. We were going to ban them. When I was at Consumer Affairs at City Council, proposing bills to ban them, we didn't know what to do. Because who wanted to be against the bill that was going to ban ATM fees? Everybody hates ATM fees. At the same time, you recognize a bank doesn't have to put that ATM out there, and if they're putting out there and it's a convenience and they're going to charge money for it, this is America, why shouldn't they do so, as long as they don't double dip or charge you 2 times or 3 times. But the pushback faded after the sort of initial, hey, we kind of don't like that. So I urge you to continue the pushback by actually using some of the tools that are out there. Speaking of tools, anybody who's got a high-speed connection hopefully got themselves one of those firewalls from one of the other companies, right? If you didn't, anybody can hack into your computer and take all your stuff. So please get one. But if you do get one, here's some of the stuff you need to be cautious about. Because everyone's getting these now. Some of the new modems, if you're getting broadband, have firewalls actually even built in. But these companies want to sell you stuff too, right? And if they just if they gave you one of these firewalls, then once every so often when somebody actually poked at your computer, you got a message saying, hey, we just blocked this attack, well, you'd appreciate it, but you wouldn't appreciate it a lot. But if you got tons of messages, like I do, I got a high-speed connection a while ago, I put up one of these firewalls, and I check it every so often. And there's thousands of attacks on me. Now, is it credible that thousands of people are somehow, in the course of the day hacking into my computer? No. Tons of false positives because the software manufacturers want you to feel that there are thousands of people hacking into you at every single second. And if you click to learn more about those attacks, you come to a page where you can pay for a service that will help you learn what these different attacks are. So here's an example. Here's an example of something that's built into the most popular firewall software. You can enter your PIN number or part of your credit card number. Now, why somebody who's sort of nervous about this wants to kind of put this information into their computer, I don't know. But you can enter into your software and what this will do is anytime someone comes to try to snatch that information off your computer, it will look for those numbers. So let's assume you're worried about your social security number. You put in the last couple of numbers of the social security number, and if anybody tries to steal it, it looks for those numbers in all your traffic that's flying back and forth, and a message pops up and it says, so-and-so is trying to access your social security number. So here's what happens. Your PIN number is like 4 numbers, right? It's 5 numbers, you're putting part of it in there. There are tons of numbers flying back and forth, right? You go to Amazon, it's pulling up your personalized page. You go to Yahoo, they want the ads to refresh every time you look at a page. They generate random numbers. So guess what? Your 4-digit number, once every 20 times shows up. And all of a sudden you get this message saying that Yahoo is trying to steal your credit card number, and you really don't know what's going on. So some of this privacy and security tools that are out there create sometimes more hysteria or concern than the problems they're solving. And so it's important to try to get a little bit educated and informed about it. The government sometimes is responsible for these scams as well. I stepped on some toes when, as a Democrat, I ran on the Republican ticket when I ran for public advocate with Mayor Giuliani. But I had gotten on a lot of Democratic mailing lists, occasionally contributing and so forth to Democratic causes. And so I started saving some of the various mail I got. Now, this is something I got while I was a very bad Democrat running as a Republican. So this was a letter. It looks like it's written in actual print. And this has been printed for me by Bill Clinton. It's on a real nice piece of see-through paper, and it's sort of a pencil. The latest laser printers, I guess, can print stuff that's supposed to look like it's a personal note. And it's a limited edition picture. It looks like it was run off a very high fashion laser printer, but it's a limited edition picture of you. Some of you may have got this if you've ever contributed perhaps to a party cause. To Jules Polonetsky, your support has made my presidency a success and kept the Democratic Party strong. The entire, maybe like 500,000 of these probably went out. The entire First family, including Buddy, is grateful for your and loyalty with my very best wishes, and Bill Clinton has signed it here in blue ink. Now, since this is a very valuable limited edition picture sent out probably in volumes of 500,000, the letter that came with it from the then Democratic Party chair wants me to sign and return the enclosed delivery confirmation form, which of course has a fundraising thing on the bottom, so that the chair of the Democratic could know that this official photograph arrived promptly and in excellent condition. Not wrinkled or run off another on the laser printer. Now, when I send this form back, please enclose a photograph of you or your family with your delivery confirmation form. Your personal photograph, along with the pictures of other Democratic Party leaders, all 500,000 that respond to this mailing by sending us $25. And this is not a high, just in case you think this went to the VIPs, $40, $60, or $80 you can contribute, or other, you don't even want to contribute that. So the picture I send back is going to be displayed on the 1998 Victory Wall, which the President can view when he visits Democratic National Headquarters. Later, they'll be placed in commemorative albums given to President Clinton to show him you and other leading Democrats are firmly in his corner by offering your support on these photographs. The Republicans do the same thing. Here's one from the Republican side. So just as somebody who can poke fun at the folks in government today from the other side. Let me close with two brief things, because I know we're going to jump into questions. Initially, it's been in the news a lot. Again, my colleagues who are still in government who've been active here. One of the issues that was a big concern to me when I was a state legislator and then at Consumer Affairs was the funeral industry. The Attorney General, one of his early steps, launched a lawsuit and settlement against Service Corp, the funeral home chain in New York, and forced them to divest from one of their homes. My argument to his office had been that there was a near monopoly over sections of the industry, and by forcing them to divest, that has been real positive. But a lot of you who continue to follow the news saw recently that in Florida, for instance, where funeral homes are also allowed to own cemeteries, an SCI-owned home was accused of piling bodies that were supposed to go in graves in sort of some back corner of the cemetery. Some of you probably saw recently a crematorium that kind of was running low, and instead of actually properly caring for the bodies as the relatives asked, also sort of piling them and then just saving up the fees. At Consumer Affairs, we passed a set of regulations to force sort of broader disclosure by funeral homes, forcing them to explain who actually owns them and a set of rules along that guidelines. But as I see these stories popping up in the news, I just remind you and I remind the regulators that this is an issue that still needs incredible vigilance. I just joined Weight Watchers. Am I going to be able to do the $11 from my tax return according to that latest thing?
If you meet all of the conditions.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for your interest.